Welcome. Welcome to my stream where I am going to read whilst playing Mass Effect 3 to the Helen. It's crazy, isn't it? Crazy as a box of frogs. But let's give it a go. So, here we go. Let's, come on. Pointless unless Helen can hear it. I see one do we now. I have been told multiple times that I should read books to people by things. I don't know. So let's give it a go. Oh, here we go. I need to find myself on the stream. Ah, come on. View my channel. There we go. So, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? So, I need to find out the best way to do this. Do I call Helen on WhatsApp? Or do I just read to her over YouTube, forcing her, therefore, to listen to it? And also means that she can hear me, but doesn't get to talk back. I don't know if that's good or bad. Okay. I think I'm going to do it. I don't know. I know she likes the personal attention, but she's got used to it. Way too used to it. She's too used to it. So, I think I'm just going to read to her over YouTube today. Here we go. So, continuing with Elizabeth Moon. She's like, do it, do it, do it. Yes, I will be doing it. I will be doing it. It's going to be very strange. So, you can see on the screen a military situation. Now, in space, Elizabeth Moon has written, she's an ex-Marine, I think she was a lieutenant, or as you Americans say, lieutenant. Helen saying something about not being used to something, but she's going to have to get used to it now, because this is how it's going to be with this. So, let me tell the world what this is. Elizabeth Moon hunting party, part of the Serrano legacy. I've quite enjoyed these books. She also does a series called the Pax and Ariane series, which is sword and sorcery. But this is something very unusual. If you can imagine Firefly slash Serenity mixed with horse riding and fox hunting, right? And you might go, well, that's nuts. But you know what? I really enjoyed this series. It's not all perfect. She has this thing where Americans like to they like to show off their apparent English skills, even though their English skills, you know, English is by definition English. What is spoken by the English. Anyway, I'm going to put my glasses on. I'm going to start to read. I cannot say how long it's going to be for me to read, but you can see on the screen a military something while I read a military thing. I cannot. I'm going to try and see that I can see. So, Helen, are you ready? Please respond. Paul Serenity, are you ready? Please respond. By the way, I will... Shut up, Helen. You're no longer... You know, sorry, baby darling, but on this platform, while you are 60% of the point, you are no longer all of the point, and you just need to deal with that. So this is a test. Paul Serenity, are you there? Hello, Paul Serenity, are you listening? I'm reading to you with my excellent headset. I'm doing what I do almost every night to Helen, and I get told again and again and again I should do this as part of my living, but you know, it's not necessarily that easy. Paul Serenity, are you there? I need a response, please. No? Alright, well, I'm going to carry on anyway. So, Hunting Party, Serrano Legacy, Chapter 4, Elizabeth Moon. I won't be looking at my chat from this point onward. Chapter 4. I didn't ask you if it was going fine, Harris said. I asked you what the sulfur extraction rate was. Do you know or not? With each day, her unease about the yacht's basic fabric and systems had grown. Getting answers from the crew had turned out to be harder than she expected. The moles looked at one another before Timmins answered. Well, pretty much, Captain. It's below norm at the moment, but it usually runs that way because that Dauber wants a sulphur-rich sludge for his veggie plots. It took Harris a moment to translate Civtech slang and decide this meant Lady Cecilia's gardener wanted more sulphur in the first pass sludge. In the meantime, they still had not answered as she thought they should. I haven't done a great job of this, okay? I'm being a bit... Andrew, honestly. Sorry, that's not going to happen again. I'm not going to apologise for my reading. Get on with it, fuck off, or not. She let the steel edge her voice. Below nom is not what I'm looking for. What precisely is the number you have for sulphur clearance? Again, the sidelong looked from one mole to another. This time it was Keegan who answered. Quick backstory. This is a space yacht in interstellar space. The author has done a passable research into physics and stuff like that. Okay, so space is dangerous. It's 0.3 of first signum, that is, which is, prompted Harris. He could feel temper edging higher. Well, the book says 1.8, but this system's never worked any better. And 1.6, just under first sig. Mostly, we run about 2 sigs below. Let's say about 0.7 or so. System's underutilised, though. It's not that important. It's rated for a population of 50. We don't have that many aboard. Harris closed her eyes briefly, running over the relevant equations in her head. Sulphur clearance was only one of the major cycles, but critical to the ship's welfare because errors could not only make people sick, but degrade many of the ship's components as well. Delicate comm equipment didn't like active sulphur radicals in the ship's atmosphere. She added ship's crew, house staff, and owner's family. In case you haven't noticed, she said briskly, we now have 51 humans. Humans? Oh my god. I'll start again. In case you haven't noticed, she said briskly, we now have 51 humans and a long voyage ahead of us. I presume you flushed the tanks, re-inoculated them while we were in port? But the hand-dog looks told her they hadn't, and the last logged maintenance by off-ship personnel was this, Diclos and Sons, Backlin Station. That's right, Ma'am, Timmins said. They couldn't have done such a good job, fancy pants as they are, because the system never did pick up the points, but Captain Helen said, never mind. Oh, he did? Harris struggled to keep her thoughts off her face. First, his demand for an odd, inconvenient course that did not meet the owner's demands, and now a tolerance for malfunctioning environmental equipment. Something no sane captain would have. Failing to order the tanks flushed and recharged at Rock House might have been spiked. Revenge for being spiked, but until then he had risked his own life as well as everybody else's. What could have made the risk worth it? That's interesting. When I read to Helen normally, I don't find it so hard to flow. This is really bad. This is bloody awful. We'd better see how bad it is, she said briskly. Suit up, and we'll go take a look. You, Captain, said Icklind. He almost never spoke, she discovered, letting chatty Simmons say anything necessary, but now he looked worried. Harry's let her brows rise. It had worked on other ships. It should work here. Did you think I wouldn't want to check myself? Well, it's not that, Captain. Only these things can smell pretty bad. Pretty bad was an inadequate description of a malfunctioning sulphur loop. And by the way, as a chemist, I know what nasty sulphur compounds can smell like. And she was sure more than the sulphur scrubbers were in trouble. Once the pH had gone sour, and by pH I know what pH is, okay, so sod off, morons. Once the pH had gone sour, many of the enzymes, and maybe this is maybe this is my thing. This is not me reading to Helen, this is me being me, which she loves, because I put these little extra bits in. Okay, fine. No, I'm happy now. Once the pH has gone sour, many of the enzymes in other loops worked erratically as the chemistry fluctuated. That's why you will be suited, she said. When they didn't move, she said, 5 minutes in the number 4 access bay. Complete suits? Asked Timmons. They're awfully hot. You prefer to risk the consequences? Harris asked. With the system you know is malfunctioning? It just stinks, Timmons said. When she glared at him, he said, all right, Captain. Suits. As he left, he heard him mutter, damn lot of nonsense. Can't be enough reaction in that loop to give us more than a headache at worst. Should do that in different accent. Damn near loony nonsense. Can't be enough reaction in that loop to give us more than a headache at most. So you'd think that's what the American who wrote this was thinking. Quickly, Harris gave Gavin his orders for the next hour, which compartments to seal, which backup crew to have ready, suited, in case of trouble. That's the rescue thing. Then into her own suit, the cost of which had come from the advance on her contract, and which she never begrudged. Whatever else on this gilded cesspool of a yacht did or did not work as designed, her own personal self-contained suit would, or her family would, enjoy the large sum which Zensix guaranteed if any of this suits failed. She wasn't worried. Only twice in the past 50 years has Zensix had to pay out. I just hope that's because of failure, not good lawyers. You getting that, Paul? When she was still a corridor away from the access bay, the alarm went off. For an instant, she thought something had gone wrong on the bridge. But then she realised what it must be. One of those fools hadn't waited for her. "Captain!" Gavin bleated in her ear. She tumbled down the volume of the suit. "Commute." "What is it?" she asked. "I'm at E7 right now." Ahead of her, a grey contamination barrier flapped down from the overhead and snicked tight, its central access closed. "Computer says dangerous chemical, sulfur something, and the motion sensor said someone was there. It isn't moving. They're in suits." Sulfur something. Oh my god. It's the second in command of the ship. Anyway, get those backups down there, Harris said, mentally cursing civilians in general and the ship's former captain in particular. "Make sure they have their helmets locked on. I'm going in." Despite her fate in Zenx's legendary suits, she shivered a moment. The gas in there was deadlier than many military weapons, but so familiar throughout human history that people just did not respect it. Sulfur dioxide, I'm thinking. Or hydrogen sulfide, either one. Kicked out by catalytic converters, to make our environment better. My fucking god. She wriggled through the access iris, which lengthened into a tube and sealed itself behind her. The suit's own chemical sensors flicked to life, giving the readout she expected. Hydrogen sulfide, here in less than life-threatening concentration. Hydrogen sulfide. That's what you smell from the catalytic converters, the people that do less than 15 minutes worth of driving every morning. To save the environment, since 1991. Good to know. Harris hurried, even though she knew it would almost certainly be too late. Around the corner she came upon Timmons, who had suited up but not locked on his helmet. What the fuck? Presumably he'd planned to do so when he got to the access bay itself. He lay sprawled on the floor, one arm outstretched towards Inklind, slumped against the open access, wearing no protective gear at all. She went to Timmons first, locking his helmet in place and turning his oxygen supply to full with the external override. Her suit had all the necessary drugs for standard industrial inhalation accidents, but she'd never used it, nor was she a medic. She'd have to rely on the backup team. Hicklin wasn't breathing at all, and no wonder. The hydrogen sulfide concentration in here had peaked at over 1,000 parts per million. It says ppm, but I don't know what they are. According to the monitor above the open access hatch. Inside, someone, presumably Hicklin, had cracked the seal on the sludge tank. It was brimful, far above the safety line. The black line of filth drooled over its lip. Harris picked up the wrench on the floor, closed the cover and tightened the seal, then closed the hatch. Now the monitor indicated the concentration was below 200 ppm. Still dangerous, but not instantly lethal. They were lucky, she thought, that the agitator hadn't been on in the sludge tank. And why not? Or the concentration could have been a log or so higher. That's logarithm higher, which means 10 times, for anyone wondering. Elizabeth Moon has this thing where she likes to sound clever. If she could drop that, she would be a hell of a lot better writer. And I think she's pretty good already. But she's too busy, trying desperately to sound clever. A shadow moved at the corner of her vision. The backup team. That will be the number 2 engineering officer and the off-shift senior mole. Came around the corner and stopped. Even through their helmets, their eyes showed wide and staring. "Come on!" Harris said. "Get Timmons to the med box. He might have a chance." It seemed to her they moved too slowly, but they did wrestle Timmons back up the corridor towards the contamination barrier. Harris called the bridge. "Ickland's dead," she said. "Hydrogen sulfide. Apparently he opened the sludge tank without any protective gear." Gavin started to say something and she overrode him. "We have 3 problems here. Timmons first. Is that a medical AI capable of handling inhalation injuries? Second, we've got to clear up the rest of the contamination, and the system is too overloaded to reabsorb it unless you can come up with a cargo section full of reactant. And third, of course, is Ickland. We need medical and legal evaluation. I will take that up with Lady Cecilia. Oh, and another thing. We're not going to continue in this unsafe condition. I want Sirkin to plot a course to the nearest major repair facility, preferably on the way to our destination." The med box, I don't know, Captain," Gavin said. "It's not, meant for major problems." Harris managed not to snap at him. "At least you can tell it's the problem. All I know is it's a cellular poison and there's some kind of antidote. Now, send someone down with a recorder so that I can document Ickland's position and the monitor readings. Then we can bring his body out." Even as she said this, she realised she was straining the crew's resources. That'll be a convenient place to stop, but I'm going to carry on because I'm enjoying this. And frankly, that's all that matters. That and the enjoyment of my Helen, who is, regardless, very Welsh. You are allowed to comment. "Helen?" "Milady," said Harris, "we have several problems." Just what I need, thought Cecilia. Problems with the ship. Now she'll start whining about different this from the military. Okay, so background. Harris Serrano is a military commander of a massive cruiser and very talented, and she has a background of multiple admirals in her family, so she's really fucking good actually. But something bad happened. We don't know what it is yet. She nodded, trying for a cool, distancing expression. Down a straight back usually dissuaded complainers. Lady Cecilia, of course, is one of the ruling people of the galaxy, but she's only interested in fox hunting and doing what the fuck she likes. This is a very strange book where you got space travel. Like I said, imagine Firefly with fox hunting. What? A heart attack? A stroke? Despite her determination not to react, she felt her heart lurch in her chest, and her voice came out shrill and harsh. "No, Lady Cecilia." Harris had tried to think of a non-threatening way to tell her employer, considering how old the woman was, but had not come up with anything better than the bold truth. I'm going to change the size of the script, because if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it in a way I can see more script. He died of hydrogen sulfide poisoning, the result of opening a sludge tank without protective gear. In addition, another crewman is suffering severe inhalation injury from the same source. But all we have is a med box. Cecilia felt as if she had just fallen off at a gallop. Crewman dead? Another sick? Was this what came of hiring an ex-military captain? No, you'd all be dead if you hadn't. She tried to remember the specifics of the medical unit. It's a standard industrial pollutant, Helen said. The unit has the right medications and the right software to treat him. I checked that, of course, before coming to you. I'm not able to read. What the fuck is going on? Oh, Cecilia realised she'd slumped and straightened again. Because she's got a pole up her arse. I'm very sorry to have given you this shock. Perhaps I should call someone? Cecilia recognised someone giving her time to pull herself together and was caught between resentment and gratitude because of pride. I've never lost a crew member before, she said. Not since I've owned the Sweet Delight. She struggled with the mixed emotions and tried to think clearly. Poison? Gas from a sludge tank, you said? Has someone put something in it? Oh my God. Harris recognised the attempt for what it was and masked her amusement that anyone, even a rich old lady, could travel in space and not know the most common and deadly of the environmental byproducts. No, milady. Sludge generates several toxic gases which are normally converted into harmless chemicals used in your ponics section. That's hydroponics, in case anybody wondered. When the environmental system is functioning smoothly. This isn't sabotage, it's just a mishap. Ickland apparently decided to open the tank without proper protective gear, and Timmons tried to rescue him but hadn't sealed his own helmet. Then who saved Timmons? Asked Cecilia. I did, Harris said. Cecilia's eyes widened, but she didn't say anything. I had told them I would inspect the system, and they were to meet me, properly suited, at the access bay. Instead, she shrugged, I don't know why Ickland didn't wear his suit, or why Timmons didn't wear his helmet, but I will find out. Very well, Captain. That was clearly dismissive. I will expect to hear more from you tomorrow. That's not quite all, said Harris carefully. This time the gaze was direct and challenging. What? Is something else wrong? I realise, Harris said, that you just had this vessel redecorated, and it must have been expensive. My sister did that, Cecilia said. What of it? Well, your main environmental system is overloaded. That's why I was going to inspect the system. It was not functioning to specifications. Your former captain did not have the system purged and recharged at the correct intervals. He must have! I remember the bills for it. Cecilia called up her accounting software and nodded when the figures came up. Oh, yes. Oh, someone's charged. It must have happened. There it is. Diclos and Sons refitting General Backlin Station. Sorry, my lady, said Harris. You got the bill, but the work wasn't done. I could see that from the sludge tank Icklin had opened, and since then I've had the other environmental techs, check the filter and culture chambers. It's a mess. The sulfur cycle's in trouble, and that impacts your nitrogen uptake in hydroponics. It isn't presently dangerous, but it will require some caution until we reach a refitting station. My recommendation would be to do that as soon as possible. By choosing a different set of jump points, we can be at your chosen destination only one day after your request. Cecilia glared. You didn't find this out before we left? No, my lady, I didn't. Cecilia waited for the excuse that she herself had rushed their departure, but it didn't come. Her captain had no expression at all, and after a moment went on. Initially, I accepted the logs showing that the purge and recharge had been done, and the fresh inspection stickers. You are quite right that I should not have done that. Logs have been faked before, even in the regular space service. A tight smile which did not reach the captain's eyes. Cecilia wondered if she ever really smiled. Yes, she does. But I noticed an anomaly in the data stream 2 days ago and began tracking it down. Your moles, sorry madam, your environmental technicians claimed it was your gardener's fault. But the plain fact is the work wasn't done. I believe it will be possible to document that and get a refund from Diklos and Sons. Your reputation should help. Oh, yes. Cecilia felt off balance. She had been ready for evasions and excuses, and her captain's forthright acceptance of blame surprised her. I realise, my lady, that one reason you changed captains is that your former could not keep to your schedule, but in this instance I feel that your safety requires an emergency repair of the system. I thought, Cecilia said pettishly, that I'd specified an environmental system far larger than I'd ever need, just in case something went wrong. Oh no, yes, it's really good, but if someone fucks around with it... Yes, my lady, you did, but with your present guests and their personal servants, that limit has been exceeded. And with the degradation of performance of the system, and the lack of refitting capabilities at Lord Thornbuckle's, it would be most unwise to proceed without repair. And that will take 6 days to the nearest refitting facility. I trust 2 days docked, and with a reasonable course and dry performance, we should be, as I said, just 1 day late to your destination. I suppose that's better than 8 days late I had before, which landed me with young Ronnie, because I wasn't there to argue hard enough and loud enough. Cecilia shrugged and said, Oh, very well. Do what you think best. You're the captain. But her captain didn't leave, merely stood there. What else? She said. I strongly recommend some restrictions in the next 6 days. At present, we have no ship-wide emergency, but I would prefer to prevent one. But it's only 6 days, Cecilia began, then stopped. You're really worried. To her surprise, her captain smiled slightly. Yes, I cannot justify it by data alone. But although I have been on this ship only a short time, there is a feel of something wrong. Intuition in a fleet officer? Just show. Intuition I have learned not to ignore. I am instituting quite severe restrictions in crew activities and strongly recommend them for your staff and guests as well. Such as... Her captain ticked them off on her fingers. A change in diet to minimize sulfur and nitrogen loading the system. Oh, God, I love it how when someone doesn't do their proper research. For 6 days, the loss of muscle mass or conditioning from a low-protein diet should not... Protein has mostly nitrogen, not sulfur. Fuck off. Oh, it's so annoying. special needs, that can of course be accommodated. Restrictions in water use to include the exercise pool, since that water is cycled through the same systems, and all. God, I hate Kindles. And organics compounds inevitably end up in it. The gardens will need to be handled as part of the regular environmental system as well. The gardeners will love that. She thought of her pet equids with a pang. Look, she's got these tiny horses in some kind of environmental ecosystem. They would have to go. Perhaps she could flash freeze them, but it was always chancy. And the beautiful flowers, the fresh fruits and the vegetables, they would have to restock or eat preserved food all the way to bunnies. Sorry, milady, but the environmental tech's excuse for letting the system go outside nominal is that your gardeners had requested a particularly high sulfur effluent for some special crop. I see. So we're to arrive at some shipyard, hungry, thirsty, dirty, and bored. But healthy and alive? Yes. Yeah, you could die and be well fed. Idiot. Cecilia's heart sank. She could imagine what Ronnie and his friends were going to say about this. It had been bad enough already. For a moment she was tempted to let go in one of the towering rages of her youth. She's a ginger. But she was beyond that now. She had no energy for that kind of explosion. Very well, she said again. If you will enter the specifications, I will inform the staff and the others. Thank you, milady. Her captain's face looked as if it might be intending an apology. But she did not then apologise. Well, why would she fucking apologise for the previous crew and captain's arseholery? Fuck you. She gave a curious stiff nod and went out quickly. Cecilia blew a long, disgusted breath and called cook. She might well get on with it. New section. The Coming roads occupied a location that made it ideal for refitting deep space vessels and little else. Not even the most ship-fervored spacer would choose for recreation the bleak, cold planet the station encircled. For the in-system, Maurice offered sweet, shallowy oceans and Golmerung, spectacular peaks and glaciers, but Taconian roads offered reasonable proximity to 4 mapping jump nodes, and one of them apparently bound to the planet. Harris had stopped there with a battle group once, and had been impressed by the size of the fixtures and the quality of the crews. The Sweet Delight had communications equipment only just inferior to that of the cruiser Harris had left. She could pop a message just as they left FTL flight, and it would arrive well before them. Given the necessary declaration of the yacht, Mr. Gavin, still grey around the gills from her lecture, and Icklin's death, and the very close shave with Timmins, presented her with his estimate of the work to be done, down to the specifications for every component fastener. She took that estimate to the moles themselves, and when they would have initialed. God, I hate that. When it goes over 2 lines and someone's way too pleased with themselves with their vocabulary, initialed it without discussion. She insisted on going over every item with them. She's a good captain. I'm sure Mr. Gavin is right, the junior kept saying, with nervous glances at the other. She had hardly met Reese before the emergency. R-I-E-S. I'm not. Harris was past worrying about Gavin's reputation with the moles. She was far more concerned with getting the yacht safely to refitting and back out as quickly as possible. I guess you want us to look up this stuff in the manual, said the senior mole, Clegan. I want you to do your jobs, Harris said. If you are not sure, of course you must look up the specs. Well, I do, but then is this correct or not? Don't hedge about, mister. She wondered, not for the first time, how Lady Cecilia survived so many years with incompetence manning her yacht. Did rich people not even know the difference? She supposed not. Shiny surface would satisfy them even if it covered decay. No, you're wrong. Sorry, Harris. It's money. They think that money buys them anything. It's the stupid. Oh, yes, he said after a moment. She nodded. She would hold him to it. At the end of this voyage, what the hell? She would suggest to Lady Cecilia, no, she would insist that she replace the least competent of the crew. In fact, with Ickland dead, perhaps she could find someone competent at Tacoming Roads. The refitting specifications all went into the message capsule along with Lady Cecilia's credit authorisation. By the time the Sweet Delight had come within a light hour of the Tacoming Roads, the refitters had had time to ready their equipment, unpack the necessary parts and shift their workload to accommodate a rush job. Or so they should have, Harris thought. The first message she received began by explaining how impossible it would be to do the work at all, and the next, a day later, argued that it could be done, but not within the time limit she had specified. Harris took none of these to Lady Cecilia. Refitting was her responsibility, and she knew it already that a yacht owner, like an admiral, doesn't want to hear about problems that can be solved at a lower level. Besides, arguing with refitting had been a normal part of her duties as a cruiser captain. Though she didn't argue, went to the bottom of the stack and got leftover parts. She fired back her own message as fast as the uncooperative ones came in, pointing out that Lady Cecilia's holdings in the companies, whose ships formed a large part of Velarsin and Co. Limited's work, alienating a major shareholder could have a negative impact on future contracts. She ignored, as beneath her notice, the long list of other work that would run overtime if Lady Cecilia's were done. Good psychology there. The refitters capitulated, finally, in the last message received a half hour before docking, when the station tug already had a firm grip on the Sweet Delight's bustle. A bustle on this is like a big sticky out thing where the tugs grab. A bit like having a bustle on your arse. I had a bustle the other day. No, I'm lying, I didn't. Harris watched the docking critically. She had no real confidence in their pilots, because of shit. And luckily, no need for it. The station's AI had no glitches as it eased them to berth 78. Hope you're satisfied, growled the bulky man in a dark grey ship suit uniform when she called Velarsin and Co. Shifted a dozen jobs for you, we have. Gonna lose a bonus on one of them. I shall be satisfied when our work is complete, correct and prompt, said Harris. Remember the old adage, which I'm going to take to you now and I'll repeat many times. It is better to be feared than liked. And it is true. He snorted, half anger and half respect. Just like every Fleet Yard superintendent she'd ever known. She's got boobs. I have his specs, he said. They're as foul as you claim your bilges are. I am not surprised. Harris smiled at him. We had non-conformance in the last maintenance before I took this ship. It's my guess it hasn't met the original specs in years. When your crew be aboard, they'll be awaiting your access, he said, and me with them. I want to meet the captain of a private yacht that can bend the rules upstairs. Fine, said Harris. I'll be there in 5 minutes. I have to inform the owner. The owner, when Harris called her, sounded stiff and resentful because she's been a tit. I still do not understand, Captain Serrano, why we could not have stayed aboard. Surely, with the umbilicals to the space and environmental, we don't need to worry about contamination aboard. She had complained before. She explained again, patiently but firmly. She knows how to use... Oh, I forgot the word. What the hell? Passive, aggressive... Assertive behaviour. M'lady, even the best refitting crews cannot access the system without an occasional leak. It will stink, and worse than that, you might be exposed to hydrogen sulfide or other toxic contaminants. It is safest to seal the crew, staff, and owner's space. The vents themselves, which means no circulation at all. All the working crew will be in protective gear, as I will be while I supervise. It takes only one good lungful of sewer gas, m'lady, to kill you. She did not need to say more. Lady Cecilia gave a delicate shudder, and she had already arranged for the appropriate law enforcement division to take over Ilklin's body, along with the meagre evidence. The crew's lating, m'lady, and the sooner they start... Very well! It was crisp and unfriendly, but not an argument. And where are we staying? The real problem, Harris thought, was that Lady Cecilia had never been here before and wasn't sure of accommodations. As well, those brats were probably whining and dragging their feet. You, m'lady, have a suite at the Selenor, where the shipping line executives stay. There's limited space, and I had to book the young people in a different hostelry on another level. I realise that's inconvenient. This time, a trace of warmth in her employer's voice. I can survive that. Meet me for dinner, then. I'll want to report. 2000 local time. 6 hours. They just have started, really. Harris had counted on supervising them closely all through the first shift. But she could come, report, and return quickly. Oh, yawn. She would not have to stay for a meal, she was sure. Of course, m'lady, I'll be at the maintenance access as you leave. Please have Bates call when the staff has cleared the ship. Bates, by the way, is the butler and in charge of staff rather than crew. I'll let you work that out, you're not stupid. Very well. Harris gave her crew a stern look. Mr. Gavin, you and Environmental will suit and observe the first shift. The rest of you are booked into transient crew quarters less than 15 minutes from here. I expect you all to stay available. We'll have at least 2 crew aboard the ship at all times, and you'll rotate. A stir, no more. They knew better than to protest by now. Have you confirmed station air supply to every compartment? She asked Gavin. Oh, to all but the owner's quarters, ma'am, he said. Oh, I was going to do that as soon as my lady left the ship. Computer says it's fine, but... Do that, then, while I go meet the refitters. Lady Cecilia is debarking now. It's nice to have someone that understands what a debarking is. Though I suppose you can have disembarking if you want. That's it, I kind of like disembarking. She followed the crew of the ship and met the crew chief of the refitters and the maintenance access. He and his workers already wore pressure suits to protect themselves from contamination and carried helmets tucked under their arms. The sudden flicker of his eyelids, he saw that he recognised her origins. I'm Captain Serrano, she said, and you're Key Brenier, he said, a slow smile lighting his heavy face. Excuse me asking, but you're ex-regs, aren't you? That's right, said Harris. She wondered if he'd asked more, but he merely nodded. Guess that's why you managed to put fear into management. I don't hear command voice very often. Well, Captain, let's see what you've got. He wasted no time asking for details she'd already sent, but ordered his crew into helmets and nodded sharply to Harris. She suited up, locked her own helmet on, and led him into the ship. Let's start from the bottom up, he said. Over the suit radio. She could hear his voice, but not the clear words through the helmets. It formed an irritating echo. First worst, and then we can give you an estimate. It's me pretending to have the echo. Harris had always hated suit drill, and even after the suit had saved her life, she still disliked it. She hated being closed in with her own breath sounds and the hissing of the air supply. She had 2 hours of air in her own rebreathing tanks, and the exterior connector allowed her to plug into station air in any compartment with a vent. But she felt smothered. In the lowest environmental level, her own moulds were already suited. Oh, finally. They managed to look sheepish, even in suits, as well they ought. Mr. Brenier, she said to the moulds, he's in charge of this overhaul. And here are my shift supervisors, Brenier said. Herrick Santana, first shift. Ali Santana, second shift. And Miko Alduvar on third. Any time I'm not here, one of them will be. I expect to be here most of the time, but I may have to goose inventory control if you people are in as bad a shape as you said. The shift supervisors in bi-coloured orange and silver suits stood out from the orange-suited crew, but nonetheless had name and position stencilled on front and back of both suit and helmet. By local time, it was now second shift, the first shift supervisor waved to Brenier, who nodded and left. Second shift supervisor's voice came over the radio. Captain, would you like to have your crew secure a compartment? Certainly. With commands she could give herself direct to the computer. The compartment hatches slid shut. Status lights changed and they all moved to connect their suits to the compartment's exterior air supply vent. From now on they would have to take care not to tangle each other's umbilicals. Confirm external air, and waited for each response before nodding to Brenier. Brenier pointed to one of the ship's moulds. Let's take a look at the scrubber. That's looking worst on the computer. Right, it's 3 minutes past midnight. I don't want to read anymore. My girl is probably asleep. Normally I can see her. So, YouTube, that was part of chapter 4 of Elizabeth Moon's hunting party. The first. Oh, she's still awake. She's done a thing. The first book of the Serrano Legacy. I will be doing more of these. I just need to figure out how. I'm actually quite surprised how badly I read that. It got better towards the end, but I don't know if Helen agrees with me, but when I read it to her, I tend to be more flowing and less worried. But we'll work it out. It's a thing in progress. So thank you for joining me. Helen's looking forward to me doing more of these because she's an idiot. So I'm in a military setting, which is a space setting, and I'm pretty sure that Commander Shepard, I don't know why he's not been promoted to captain, because that's stupid. For anyone that doesn't know, a commander in the Navy is equivalent to a lieutenant colonel in the army. A captain is equivalent to a colonel. In other words, you're in charge of a bunch of things, right? So why am I not a captain when this is my ship? I mean, seriously. The only thing I can think of is that it's equivalent to a submarine, because a submarine captain, because they call them captain, but they're usually a commander. All right? So this is a submarine, effectively. A submarine in space. And I want to apologise for how fucking ugly my face is. I designed it very badly. So, thank you so much for joining me reading to you. I can't believe that 4 or 5 people are going to listen to this. Just honestly, I don't understand. I seriously don't understand. It's not that I don't understand why you would listen to someone reading a story, because I hate most audiobooks because they do it wrong. Part of it is like, I think I'm doing it wrong all the time. I just don't know anyone that wants to listen to me do this, apart from Paul Serralti, who didn't put anything in the comments. Bitch! Anyway, I love you anyway. So, good night. Bye-bye.